Welcome to Cooking with Francois. Tonight we shall be concentrating on the brains. We will be covering recipes, Series 93, 121, items 1 through 43. As regards routine forms of human entertainment, one man says, I don't really care much for my own thinking, so why should I pay to hear someone else's? The origins of everything was silence, but then came man, then came speech. The origins of everything was silence, but then came speech, then came man. Were silence, of course. I knew Francois should have finished grammar school. Did that ruin? Could you understand the origins of everything? What seems to be your original physical and mental personality is not simply some sort of curse or villainous aberration to be overcome, but is, by God, the basic you. And it must be fully utilized in your attempt to escape from you. Although the mind is as constrictive as railroad tracks, it has the unusual, canny ability to lay rails going away from and out of itself. Dictum de la choo-choo. You got to use what you got, and thank God, men got brains. They worked as a team. In the spring, his dog would shed hair while he would unload recently acquired mental fat. One father told his son, if you want to get technical about it, the closest there is to being a valid form of criticism regarding man would be that pertaining to those reflective of regression in his overall development. But even that's iffy due to the unpredictability of the weather. I told you before, sir, you can't go in there. It rains, therefore I am. Definition: nothing. What to think about when you have nothing to think about. But does that stop most people? One man told his mind, I have decided to become your mystical, your transcendental guru, and lead you from the neural land of ignorance, error, and uncertainty to the universal light of truth, wisdom, and eternal peace. And his mind asked, well, how much is this going to cost? And the man replied, well, now there's the problem. His mind said, forget it. Break 2 eggs. On the road to being more conscious is the ability to talk, almost indefinitely, about things no one else even thinks about. For those who might care to sing along with this, next time it comes around, you'll find it on page 123 of your joke hymnal. One day, a certain civilized, educated, successful, and sophisticated city man thought it is the hungry who are truly fortunate. Related thereto is why outlaws continue to pop up as heroes. A man who can think has no teacher, except someone had to teach him how to do it. Never look a gift calmness in the mouth. Although the surprised mind will almost make you do so, damn him. Men born to power boats can't help but believe that they should always be on the way to somewhere, even if it is continually proves to be nowhere. Or, if you're not really interested in going to a certain place, you won't necessarily jump for joy or on the bandwagon when the opportunity to go there presents itself. Gentlemen, pull up to the starting buoys. The race is ready to begin, and give a wide berth today for Buddha, piloting Miss Budweiser 4. Only people who've led interesting lives write their autobiography. One man looked at modern life as it whirled about him and asked, what good is the wider distribution of information if we still can't fix the blame? One guy's distilled motto, life is great, people suck. Tell me, what are you going to do with somebody like that? Yet to be publicly revealed are the dynamics underlying the reason why nothing in life comes even close to making humans as mad as other humans. Is analyzing life a trashing of life? Is being here in life its way of trashing you? How normal verbal concepts have let you down again in the city. Everything has a third opposite. When men describe transcendental states of consciousness as being one in which the usual boundaries between one's I, me, ego, and the individual sense of self are dissolved and one is seamlessly merged with all of creation, what are they saying other than that life itself is alive and that within all universes everything is universal? When a man sees that there is nothing to be out from, he is no longer troubled by spurious notions of finding a way out. Wild animal tip for everyone with a wild animal. It's easier for them to keep you lashed down if you lash out. Only a mind running on gasoline will knock human nature. As had become the norm, local conditions told the creatures who could hear words, life's back on the prowl, taking asses and handing out names. Have you received yours yet? A question one man presented to himself. If the reality of life could be plotted down to an exact mathematical formula, would I still believe it? His son is the one who once wondered if there was some significance in the fact that the words would and why begin with the same letter. A book title previously used in several variations but now brought up to date. The Looseness in the Machine. The trouble with all this, trying to get the mind to shape up using mental means is like shooting it in one foot while it forever waits for the second shot. One man thought, if it weren't for reflections, I'd have nothing to reflect on. One passing method as you're passing by. Try and think some other place than in your head. And now for a topic entitled, Quit Worrying About Being Duped and Conned by Others, Look Out for You. If you develop your own system of thinking and your own paradigm of reality and you begin to take the system and paradigm seriously, then look out. Mentally, one man quit talking to himself. He said he'd finally conclude that he was just too damn stupid. See, what consciousness won't or can't tell you is that the mind doesn't give a goddamn what it thinks about, just as long as it thinks about something. All closed systems are a fool's illusion, but those who can't even see this are the biggest boobs of all. A guy thought, things aren't quite as funny to me as they used to be. They're still ridiculous, but I just don't seem to laugh at them as much. The ties between humor and understanding are as subject to divorce as any, I suppose. Habit makes life tolerable for the habitual. When he was younger, he thought, if my mind would work faster, I'd be more conscious. He then later began to think of it as, if my mind was more stable and predictable, I'd be more conscious. He now says, screw it, that he doesn't even want to think about it anymore. The sunshine mechanic peered down into his open hood and mused. Funny thing about these engines. The same fuel that runs the radio turns the drive shaft. And a man standing nearby heard this and couldn't understand what it meant, but was too embarrassed to ask about it. City rules you can use. The dumber you are, the better you should dress. Well, all right, let's try it like this. The less you know, the more you should talk. Is that any better? Life, spelled with a capital and a small L. One man thought the trick may be in not being anxious. And this uncertainty caused him to be edgy. Give me an L, give me an I, give me a rhyme other than lie. The stomach has a port, the privates have an aim. Everyone has some place to go except the brain. Modern definition from busy city life. Education. The illusion that you're learning something. One man thought, my mind is like a sore and I a finger. Whenever he wanted a particular something, one man was in the habit of getting less than he thought he'd ultimately need. Then later, although he saw the two as being part of the same dynamics, he began to procure more than he thought was necessary and found this to be the more satisfying approach. At times when he felt disciplinary action was called for, this one father would try and frighten his would-be transcendental son with these words. Remember, increased consciousness won't just rub off on you, but still the lad would often go to bed imagining it as possibly otherwise. One man says he's begun to think about other people's ideas, pro or con, as exotic rats in his mental corn crib, which he says is unnecessary since he has his own homegrown variety. Metaphors are useful only to men in mental rainstorms. Dry minds enjoy, rather, the pleasures of point-blank parasols with sun holes punched in them. In a closed system, even those who hate themselves are their own best friend. The reason that such an impossibility is possible is that the system itself is alive, and what seems to be its closed, finite nature is, in fact, the reality of the viable components that make up its life. Man, do it. Sitting at the bar, a man realized, drugs make my mind run faster. Oh, barkeep, no other rounds over here. Yeah. How to determine if at least one famous quip has any validity. If you are alive, the sucker has been given an even break. A man thought, the way things are shaping up, I believe I may ultimately become my own daddy, and life parried, too late, my little only recently aroused one. The axonal musical score of one man's thought processes looked at the top 40 science chart, then at similar ones from the arts and religion, and thought, I'm a crossover hit. The dialogue between the game show host and one contestant. What is more fun than thinking? Not thinking. Good. But now, what's even more fun than that? Not thinking. Excellent. Now, do you want to go on? No, Bob, I don't think so. I don't believe I can take it any further than that without doing myself possible serious harm. Well, all right, contestant. I know what you mean, and we'll be right back after this short break. Another real-life example of how the mind wishes things worked. As they watched the torpedoes inexorably speeding toward their ship, the newly assigned lieutenant gripped the captain's arm and said, "You do have emergency plans in place for situations such as this," to which the commander replied, "Yes, I've given instructions that everyone should drown." One man's mind says that its favorite mornings are those in which it is awake but not talking. One man's dream or nightmare or something in his head. For years he attempted to calm the waters whilst simultaneously searching for winds. The lifeguard told the guy with the beach ball, "It's dicey trying to picture some faraway extraordinary place while stranded on a nearby ordinary shore." So okay, I'll admit it again. The whole thing's actually pretty simple It's just hard to do. One day, this one person thought a quirky question to themselves, quirkily. Would I prefer to be bored to death or dead to death? This is another breathing example from heaving real life as to how, when ordinary minds reach the outer banks of local ennui, they will begin to thrash about in the water and start yelling out about sickness, aging, bad luck, and funerals. Well, Monty, since the second door is already taken, could I have the sequenced bikini? Anyone not smarter than themselves is not even smart enough to be taken into account. Those who believe this a duty miss the fun and most the beauty. There are precious few paths outside thyself, and the truth you need writes itself. Well, although we didn't pull it out, it's your fault. There was one there somewhere that said, is analyzing life the same as trashing life? What is the difference in somebody at any time, at any place, who did something extraordinary with their own consciousness, their own perception, their own knowledge, their own awareness, any damn thing? You perceptive fools, you, anything you'd like to call it. What is the difference between that, when it happens, and then sometime later if somebody remembers it? 50 years later, 100 years later, it becomes some sort of system. People talk about it. People now dream that, boy, I wish I had been there, actually, when Buddha really cranked it up. And, Miss Budweiser 4, God, I can't remember the horsepower, but when he actually, if I had only been there, what might be possible for me today had I been a personal, living witness? What is the difference? And off to the side, assuming that no one will take in this personally, because we're not talking about me, we're not talking about doing this. Why is it, even if you don't know, that at any particular time, regardless of what you heard, well, let me make it clear, using Buddha, if you took that as being a historical reality, and even the way they told it that he finally did something extraordinary, and that he actually did in his lifetime, and then lived 40 or 50 more years and taught people and taught them how to do it, and became a well-known, he'd walk into bars and people say, there's Buddha. Those are dreams. Those are the dreams. The Buddhas and the Moseses and the Confuciuses and the Zarathustras and the everybody else's. At the time it was going on, and the people are no importance, because none of them existed anyway. They're not important, but just give us somewhere to, you have to take a word and stand somewhere to start. So we're playing like, you always heard that they were real people. And they could have been, and they might not have been, but they weren't, and it doesn't matter. But at the time, what was going on, and see well, you're getting good enough to, we're not talking about the people, we're talking about what happened. The person's of no consequence, but again, you got to start off like you're talking about somebody, or else I'd say, somebody's mind. And then you'd want to go, well, whose? If you didn't say anything, I'd say, never mind, how about just a mind? Let's picture a mind, a consciousness, circa 520 BC. And you go, okay, I'm sophisticated. And still, your damn mind would be driving you nuts like, who's he really talking about? So, that's just the way the mind is. The person's not important, the occurrence that happens. What is the difference between then and afterwards? And why do I say that what we hear about now, what you ordinarily hear about, did not happen? What is the difference? The difference is, when somebody understood something, if they did tell somebody, what they told them was not a trashing of life. But nobody will hear that. The mind's not prepared. It has to become a trashing of life. What is all religion? Forget other things that might be and social purposes it serves and etc. If you look at it from an intellectual, if you look at it from an individual position of what could I get personally? I'm not trying to do good work. We'll get to that some other time if I should live so long. What I'm trying to do is itch this thing. Trying to scratch this itch. What is it in religion that might help me? And you look, and what's there to help you? Nothing. All it does is trash man. All of them. It says man. I'm telling you it's trashing life, because what else does man know about life? All religions, all apparently mystical, transcendental attempts for a person to do something with their consciousness after the fact, if you don't do it yourself. Anything after the fact is a trashing of life. If it is not a trashing of life, if it is possible that the information was someone attempted to communicate it, it cannot be generally heard. It can only be heard once it becomes a trashing of life. They certainly, as you know, do not call it that. They're not even big enough. They can't be truthful enough to do what I did and call it an analyzation of life. It has to be better than that, or people will not hear it. You have got to be able, at the ordinary level, that someone has to point. And so, oh, no, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. It's, oh. You go, okay, all right. And if you don't know what it is, if you're just an ordinary person, it'll immediately stop you. It's better than saying, would you like a free sample of, new breakfast cereal? That might slow you down in mid-aisle, and it might not. But something will stop almost everybody is suddenly you're walking along the aisle minding your own business of life, and suddenly this thing goes, oh, and you'll immediately stop. And assume the position. When it gets to that level, life doesn't have to say, hey, spread them and bend over the hood of the car. That's just for juvenile ruffians and delinquents. If you're an adult, the real position is so it's always this of some nature, and it does not matter. It cuts through every known religion, obviously all moral codes, because all moral codes are based on what? Don't. So it's all, you can try and extract the pseudo-mystical from religion, etc., but all civilization, everything post-survival of man, everything since man allegorically left the Garden of Paradise, ever since man could talk. The one in there that someone fractured the King's English that said the origins of everything, the origin of everything, I'll do it, was silence. Then came man, then came speech. The second verse was the origin of everything was silence. Then came speech, then came man. So everything post-survival, everything above the level of ordinary consciousness in the human nervous system all messages directed toward the human intellect. The advertising is not a parade. It is not a free gift. It is not a coupon. It's always, and you'll take the position. It'll get your attention. You will stop for a free sample, to get kicked in the Gonzarbos. You will not listen. An ordinary mind will not listen to, we can call it anything we want to. I don't have a name for it. That's why I keep calling it stuff and this. A philosophy, a religion, a view. Somebody could walk into something like this, well, it was me or somebody else doing it in a particular way. And they keep waiting here, well, wait a minute, finally he'll ease up and he'll give himself away. He'll finally go, all right, enough of this, and I'll suddenly lapse into talking about, international banking conspiracy. Or the Russians don't fool us, those communists, they played like they broke up the USSR. It's still, no. And then people go, oh, okay. Or I say, all right, here's what it is, and then it comes out that some kind of anti-Catholic tirade. Whatever it is, people keep waiting. Because they want to hear the trashiness of life trashed itself. At least that. But all of them, back to the main road for a second. All religion, all forms of civilization, the arts, everything. But especially those, what I want you to see, that seem to be directed toward the attempted enlightenment of man, which all religions are. I'm not attacking religions. It is a very crude attempt, but it's, you're not even cooking with Francois. You're cooking with, Kermit the Frog. To expect to get nourished by religion, to get individually nourished by religion, that's not religion's job. Religion's job is like to throw breadcrumbs to millions of people. That's all it can do. It's not holding back. That's all it can do. So you're not going to get individually fed. But what I tried to get you to see was everything that even seems to be specifically directed toward what there seems to be some sort of mystical or some sort of better than physical nourishment. The intellect, the heart, the soul. What do they end up doing? The only way that you'll even hear about it is they trash man. That's it. It's a trashing of life. People, as I said, people only hear it, ordinary people, if they hear it directed toward man, that even if you're walking down the aisle and the person jumped out and goes, oh, and you're ready to take the position. If it's, oh, no, I don't mean you. It's not man, it's life. You'd probably straighten out and say, well, you got any free cereal or something? You wouldn't be that inclined to stick around just for that. What would seem to be, at all levels, what would appear at first to seem to be the potential of some sort of extraordinary information. From some source, from religion, from some mystical source, from some book, some newly discovered writings in a cave somewhere. What do they end up doing if they become part of the popular verbal literate currency of life? They will turn out to be a trashing of life. And they will, if you tried to put it that way, obviously, or you should know obviously, if you tried to put it to ordinary people, which you shouldn't do, but if you did, they could handily defend themselves by saying, no. And they'd use this kind of stuff back on us. If you were that dumb, they'd say, wait a minute, you're mistaking an objective critique of the fallacies of man as being pessimism. And especially since they have a holy book, if it's religion, because they can say, by the way, I didn't say that man sucked. God did. But not me. I'm just his humble servant. I'm just here to trash man on God's behalf. He told me to. Then you'll get somebody's attention. If you are not trashing man, what do people hear? What does the mind hear? Do you mean besides almost nothing? Yes. I guess some people can try to turn it into a wee bit of insanity, or just like, well, I can't tell where you're going. I don't know. Sometimes it's interesting, but I don't know what the hell it is. What's the point? What's the point? And of course, I do have the decency not to ever go, aha, that is the point. Nah, because then they go, uh-oh, now we got it. That's some kind of new attempt to kick Zen in the balls, to trash Zen. All right, now forget people doing this and it being some sort of dance going on between people. Now ask yourself, when you try and think, if you try your best to just use the mind, and you tried to think about what's going on in life in a way that I was trying to get you to consider previously, in a way that people do not ordinarily think, and you don't even have to look for it. All you got to do is try the other course. What everybody else is thinking, don't think it. Just don't think it. So then you're off on your own course somewhere. If you find that course, you got to listen quick. You'll listen quick, won't you? Sure you will. If not, take up the position. You try and think of something you don't normally think about, and what do you think when you think that? I'm going to do it for you. You think, what the hell am I thinking about? Or you go, you keep waiting for the other foot to get shot. Which that's what's trying, when you try and enlighten the mind, when you try and turn the ordinary thought processes into some form of individual extraordinary consciousness, what it amounts to is like you have shot the mind in one foot, and it will then spend the rest of its days waiting for the second shot to get the other foot. Which it won't, because the mind can only stand that once, but it spends the rest of its life going, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. And I guess in some quarters that can pass for being, well, in some quarters being a curmudgeon can pass for being insightful. And that's about what it amounts to. Back to, you promised you were going to listen fast. You trying to think in ways that you don't normally think. Not pro or con, just in any way you do not normally think, which all you got to do is base it on, all right, what's everybody else thinking? So I've saved you that much time, you don't have to even sit around and go, what am I thinking? Of course, that's a trick. That's just according to how stupid you are to go with it. But whatever else everybody else is thinking, you just suddenly hear what somebody else just said about the political intrigues in Northern Ireland. Just don't forget it. Just don't think it. But then what do you think? Your mind then wants to treat you the way I was describing audiences trying to treat Buddha. Out of the boat, a Buddha, a Confucius there, not trashing life. And they go, I'm trying to do physical theatrics about the words, but obviously I'm fixing to do the words too. It gets even beyond, well, I don't understand it. It's almost like, well, I'm not sure I hear it. You can see the man's mouth move. You hear the sounds come out. The words make some sort of sequential, logical sense in a grammatical way. And yet you go, it's like, well, something is drastically missing. It's a trashing of life, but we'll get back to that. Then follow that between you and, this figure shows up out of the bushes and go, what does that do with your own brain, with your own mind at the ordinary level, at that level, when you try and think something that is not indigenous, that is not common property to everybody else, pro or con, it doesn't matter what. But if you try to think something outside that limit, you keep waiting for yourself. Now, I keep playing with all this. You can either say, we could do one of my news items and say, it's a man waiting for his own mind to begin to trash him. Or we could say it's the mind, or it's consciousness, waiting for the mind to begin to trash it. The only way that an ordinary person can think, the only way that literally, I keep fooling around with this, but some of you should know this, the only way that you can talk is by having two opposing forces. And there's no such thing as opposing forces, but you got to call it something. You have got to, man didn't exist from last time, if you remember, and this time. Man did not exist. Man could not hear. God could not talk until he had somebody to hear. And the man couldn't hear until God decided to talk. It takes two to do anything. Tango, Apache, waltz, checkers, live, breathe. As long as you've got two forces, one of them is trashing the other one. One of them is outlining the other. One is playing the die on a litmus rag. Sounds better than strip. I like rag. And maybe somebody's brain will take exception to that. Always watch out for a man's brain who will take exception to any attack on people's brains. Just who do you think you're talking to? Well, I believe that's pretty well established. We don't have to go into that. A man whose mind will get in a huff. It's either that or a Hudson, and we know what happened to those. What in the hell can a person do with their mind if they're not trashing life? If they're not trashing their own thoughts? How can you improve yourself? How can you get anywhere if you go, oh, wait a minute, surely all this sort of thing is to improve one's mind? I mean, since I guess somebody could be watching this and think I've already trashed all aspects of trying to improve your health or your physique or your body or your looks. Jesus, grow up. You could think that. So then the person go, all right, now we're down to trying to improve the mind. But how can you improve the mind unless you think there's something to improve? You got to trash what you think. If you do your history, you may hear about yourself. You'll become Buddhism. Because that's the only way you're ever going to hear of it. That's the only way it's ever going to come into what appears to be mental existence at that level. Is you have to trash something. Something's got to get broken. Somebody's got to be defeated. For you to improve yourself, there's got to be something wrong. God, I like that. I think I'll take up drinking so I can quit. You know, if I ever get around to it. Now you got it. That's it. That's exactly it. Don't you feel better? Well, by God, I feel almost downright religious. Could I maybe put in smoking too? You could do that. Biting my nails? Okay. All right. Do them all. We got a new religion. And if not that, at least now you can try to work on the inner bad habits in you. For those of you that didn't like the inner cow. From an earlier cooking class, for those of you that just tuned in. If somebody understood the forget difficulty, that's why I said forget difficulty, so that you could even your mind go, well, there could be just aspects of difficulty. I said forget it. Yeah, but you said it right. Forget difficulty, impossibility of thinking anything new without trashing yourself, without trashing life, without trashing man. What if somebody could figure out, what if there was a way to actually not trash life verbally and appear to, so that some could hear it as trashing life and others heard something else? That goes on periodically. There are more people who think that goes on, we'll say for the sake of humor. More people think that goes on. People think that goes on more than it actually goes on. How was that? Thus, arises the belief in hidden knowledge of people believing that within inside certain aspects of the Greek Orthodox Church, especially the Russian Orthodox, before. Well, we don't go back into that damn sham they're trying to pull on us. We know about it. But that there has been hidden within the bowels of the Russian Orthodoxy, held over close to 600 years now, certain secret rituals and knowledge. What makes that fly with people? And they're not stupid. Well, they're not any stupider than everybody else. But what makes that fly? What makes people just be sure that that's true, that it's got to be, that there is secret information somewhere? They are back without realizing it to trashing life itself again. To believe that which the ordinary takes to be, such as your grandmother and everyone else, they go and they light candles, they go to a church, or they believe in their own race, they believe in their nationality, their culture, or if it's your grandfather, he probably puts a great deal of stock in being patriotic because, hell, I lost a leg back in WW1, or, you know, back when Napoleon became extremely unpleasant. You remember that. And so he waves a flag and takes it seriously. All of that is trashing of somebody. What if you could see that from several views, I tried to slip it in once here, pointing at it makes it easier than trying to look at it, to look for it, that pointed out that a father told his son that if there was anything resembling valid criticism of man, just in a technical sense, said he, if there was anything, it would be that which would be directed toward people, toward other humans, who reflected, who exemplified regression. The uncivilized, at any particular time, people who simply, if they became the norm, I'd say go look for lifeboats, but if they became the norm, of course, there is no lifeboats. The father was telling the son that that would be the closest to any valid form of criticism. You could do that. What does it accomplish? What would it do for you mentally? What would it do for you to trash those in life who deserve to be trashed? What would it do in life to trash those aspects, those approaches, those theories, those systematic forms of thought and art that are indeed, that by any, or at least let's assume you knew enough, you looked and you went, that is regressive. If that were the norm, we would not be even making the slug-like progress that we are now. If that were true, if you were able to do that, the question becomes, what good? What any good? What minute good? What pingita good? What modicum of good? What trace of good would it do you? Other than trying to come up with 5 or 6 synonyms. None. Well, maybe I've covered this enough. I was trying to wrap up over the last few nights, trying to get you to see after all this time. As always, conventional wisdom, ordinary religion, morality, your grandmother's stitchings on the wall with, you know, maxims that smell good during the holidays. all of the exhortations of don't be hostile, don't hate your fellow man, etc., has to do with one thing. That if you're tied into the trashing of life, if you're tied into the two forces that are the minimally perceptive forces that run everything in a three-dimensional world, then you are tied to the limits of the mind. And it doesn't matter what. It's only the ordinary people on the playground that go, that, you know, will take the ex-religion, trying their best, at their very best. The ex-people go, we should be, as our great founder, as the God of X says, we should not hate other people. Even the Y people, as deluded as they are. You cannot ever get free from it if you look at either one and go, well, I can see some validity. You especially can't be one of them and go, well, at least I'm trying to be magnanimous about it. Now, you can try to be magnanimous all you want to. You can try to fly. You can try to grow ears like Dumbo. You can try to figure out how to do your own income tax. You can try all those things. There's a chemical, physical reality to all of the stories. No secret, filtering out everywhere, all the way into pop psychology today. But those that, in fact, insist that there is a deep-rooted, metaphysical, occult, transcendental purpose of the gods told somebody, cosmic forces, people from another planet, That's why I like now. It's always people from another planet now. Do the people that come up with these stories, should I trash them instead of the religious prophets? The people that get visited by ETs, do any of them, have they ever just read, like Popular Mechanics or something that just gives some idea like the universe is a lot further than from here to Brownsville? Or, that there's in fact thousands of planets in the whole universe, probably more than that. And so they say, yes, these people visited me, and they said that they're from 10 billion trillion miles away west. And then another guy comes up 2 months later, they visited him from another planet, and nobody seems to read each other. It's like, and they decided they had chosen me to give the secret, to give this one final. They're trying to help us. They've been watching us. They've seen what we've done, and they send down the message. And the man holds his breath and gets his little, can I borrow a pencil from one of you guys? And they say, you humans have got to quit being so aggressive toward one another. You have got to stop this warfare and killing each other. Wait a minute, let me write this down. Wait till I tell everybody. Wait till I tell them. And boy, what a shock. All right. What is the reality behind all of that? It's just easier. Well, I'll leave it to you. You can figure out Jesus. Most of you got an IQ. So, you got two choices. They can either tell man, the gods can tell man, that is the best that one man's mind can perceive, and if it turns out he's glib, can do magic tricks, kind of got a little charisma, he can say God told him, and then something gets going. He gets up an act, gets on the Chitlin circuit or the religious circuit. But there's what would be the only other choice to ordinary mind? That God told him, or an ET says, well, here's my message for humanity. You people, we've been watching you now, and you've got at least 5,000 or 6,000 years of history that you've been intelligent enough that you should have been responsible. And we've been holding off just because we're an advanced civilization. It says right here in our Gene Roddenberry handbook that we shouldn't interfere. But the time's come because you're running the risk of destroying the whole universe, so we had to come down and tell you this. You go, what is it? You humans have got to quit being so nice to each other. Damn it, we have seen it. It keeps popping up over and over. By the time we think you've calmed down, charity, sympathy, concern for your fellow man will pop back up. And we're here to tell you that's got to stop. That's the other, it's just as valid, but like I said, a whole bunch of you people I know now have an IQ. You can figure out which one is going to fly in this universe. If any of you like to consider the anti-universe is somewhere else. Of course, some of you soreheads, I bet you wish you lived over there. To where evil was doing good and being considerate. Yeah. And the gods and everybody, warn humanity, you people have got to stop this. There's got to be more killing. At any rate, it would be just as valid, and in this other anti-universe that we won't go into, it would exist. But you figure out. But it's always a one-sided message. And if you've got a one-sided message, if you're taking sides, which the mind must, it's not a mistake, but the mind, level of consciousness there, the ordinary level, which is based upon the mind, it cannot escape from words, that is it. And that's what everything else, including this, is the attempt to do. It's why I keep doing, if you guys don't watch enough politicians or ministers and priests, they'll get to talking real seriously and they go, and they'll do it. Well, plus lots of good hand gestures, talking louder and doing some of the things maybe I do, except they're not doing them satirically. But almost everybody, presidents, popes, they'll get to really talking and watch them. Anybody who does not know what they're talking about has this proclivity. And I would say, this is actually beside the point, and I'm just making it up. It's just my guess. I wonder if that in some way is like an unconscious allegory of them trying to God, I wish I could fly away from here, up here. At that level, the mind must take sides or it cannot speak. God had to take sides, to use the Old Testament, you guys kind of story, all over. The God had to speak. In some of the religions, as I pointed out, you must know that they even say that man was created by the Word of God, by the breath of God. The point was, it had to turn into two forces at this level for anybody to hear anything. But once you hear something, if you stay at that level, no matter what you try, you can believe that you're Albert Schweitzer reincarnated or Mother Teresa reincarnated as soon as she dies. You know, that she'll suddenly take over your spirit, but you're still left with it. You've got to try half a life. If you're Mother Teresa, you've got to, whether you do it overtly or not, you've got to try, then sympathetic, then charitable. At that level, that's all you can think. It doesn't matter which side you take, but do note that at the city civilized level, is when I was pointing out that all of the ETs always point out, at least in this, not the anti-universe, but that we got to straighten up. It's never an attack on how good we are. When you are dealing with words, if all you can do is think in words, you are constantly involved with the trashing of life, with the trashing of other people. That, I am suggesting to you that, and don't worry about those people knowing it because they do not, it's not even important, but that is the basis of the dreams of extraterrestrials coming here trying to save us. That is the reality background of all of the religions saying we've got to stop being hostile. Men have got to curb their anger. We have got to quit the killing. And it just sounds, no sane person will get up and they say that. Nobody will. Except for this, if we weren't actually dealing with ordinary words and we could talk point blank, you know, I'd simply point to you. There's not too much killing in the world. I mean, as long as it's not me. You know, what the hell do I care? See, that's the humor. Since you're not laughing, do I suppose that some of you... Well, no, may I suppose that some of you are, in fact, using your IQ and know? You see what I'm talking about? There's not too much killing in life. If there was, how shall I put this to you? Oh, all right. Life would stop it. How about that? There's just the right amount of killing. As long as it's not me or you, of course. Enough of that. It'll eventually be me or you. But there's not too much killing. There's just the right amount. Not because I say so. I don't give a damn. If you knew anything, you wouldn't give a damn, which is the difference between, if those of you that trying to remember, between an ordinary gangster and a more conscious man. There's neither one gives a damn except a more conscious man doesn't do anything about it. He doesn't play along. He doesn't know anything about it. I shouldn't try to improve upon myself, upon my own mystical insights. If you tried to describe a non-binary based reality, which I keep fooling around, so I'll go ahead and just admit it outright and go. Verbally, as far as I'll say I'm concerned, and that includes anyone who could hear it all that's on the verge, I could better describe what life is about verbally. But what would it sound like? It would sound like, I'll answer my own question, as you probably hoped I would, so that you didn't have to go home and guess. If I did verbally, my description would make the ordinary trashing of life sound like a Sunday school lesson. That would. Verbally, it would sound like, it's why I keep sort of fooling around, trying to soften you up, like, you know, maybe you're George Foreman, been laying off a while, maybe I can just punch you around a little. It's all the jokes about screw this and that, or me saying, you know, there's just the right amount of killing in life. You know, and even says not. I don't give a damn. You know that doesn't. That's saying nothing. We're certainly not talking about me, that I'm so smart that, or anybody is, that, well, you know, screw everybody. More people should get killed. It's a joke. It's a joke trying to go, ha, ha, ha. Oh, The ordinary trashing of life is really no trashing of life. People will stand for it. People will dress up and go and give 10% of their gross income to hear somebody trash them. And not just them, trash life, which is man to them. But to hear somebody stand up there, a man that apparently has billions or millions of people who will follow him or listen to his words, or hundreds of thousands or whatever, and he says, good that you're here. You took off the 1 day a week that you don't work, and you took part of that time out, put on a suit and tie, dressed up, bring in money to hear me do this. To tell you people, stay in the position. He's going to trash you. And you think, yeah, I can hear that. That's really nothing. Because to those same people, if I did what I'm saying, perhaps I'm just saying it metaphorically, but I said that I could verbally be more point blank in describing what it is to think above the line. But you do understand it would be strictly metaphorical, because to think above the line, you're not using words anyway. But for me to describe it and to take what would amount to a more nonverbal, a more analytic, the Francois, that was the cook. I waited all night to fool that one. Sang-froid. A more objective view of life down here, it would make the ordinary trashing that a minister, a rabbi, a social critic, somebody writing for the New Republic or on This Week with David Brinkley or whoever, it would make that sound like nothing. It would infuriate. Well, here's what it would do. It'd at least do this. If somebody did it, I don't mean just me, if somebody began to actually try and do that publicly, at least then this would not be like somebody thinking, I hear the lips move and I know it sound, but I don't understand it. Then they'd think, God damn. You know, I think I kind of understand it now, but I wish they'd go back to where, you know, just the lips moving. It'd be like faced with, forget Sir Lancelot going into this cave and surprisingly, suddenly, here's this dragon the size of whales. It'd be like, you know, the world's largest tuba band playing right in your face. Aggressively. Any attempt at detailing beyond a binary level, which is the basis of all human speech and thought, would make the trashing, the ordinary trashing of life, sound almost complimentary. Back to my original question, why is this so hard to hear?